Hello there and welcome to my channel. I am Bryan Lomax and I'm returning to Star Trek once again. I've reviewed the first two Star Trek movies. We're on to the third one this time around, Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. One that I have a lot of fond memories of from when I was a kid. This seemed to be one that I will say I think I enjoyed more as a kid than I do as an adult, but it's still got quite a bit going for it. I think it's still an enjoyable ride. But yeah, it picks up straight after the events of the second film with the planet that had been created by the Genesis Project now fully in swing, and we have a villain coming along, this Klingon played by Doc Brown himself from Back to the Future. He leads this Klingon rabble to come and try and find the secrets of this Genesis project, how to create one of these worlds. Because obviously if you can have the power to do this, it's limitless, isn't it, what you could do with that kind of power. So they want it, the Klingons want it, they see it as a threat from the Federation, if the Federation have it. So yeah, they want it. Meanwhile, on the planet itself, we have Spock's body that has kind of come back to life. It's been renewed in the process of this planet that has kind of regenerated cells. It's regenerated Spock's cells, and he's coming back alive. And he's calling out to Kirk from a great distance, basically through Dr. McCoy. So if you remember from the second film, if you've seen the second film, at the end of that one, just before Spock sacrificed himself, he implanted basically his own thought, his own consciousness into Dr. McCoy, and now he's calling Kirk to come and find him. All a little bit kind of mystical and never truly explained in certain ways, but it's enough. It's enough to say, okay, I'll go along with it for the sake of the story. They need to get him there somehow. But yeah, that's it. So what we have essentially is a film in which everyone is racing to this planet, this Genesis planet, for different reasons. You know, our guys, they want to go and get Spock. The Klingons, they're there to learn the secrets of it. And obviously a conflict ensues as a result of that. Now, it's quite a simplistic plot, really. There's not a lot of depth to it, I would say. Not as much depth, nowhere near as much depth as even the first film, to be honest, but particularly Wrath of Khan. Though there is quite a lot of really nice, kind of typically nice character moments, particularly between Kirk and McCoy. You know, McCoy's got he's got Spock in his head, basically. So DeForest Kelley, who plays McCoy, he has to do this kind of performance where he's channeling Spock. He's channeling Leonard Nimoy. Leonard Nimoy, who directs this one, as it happens. So this one was released in 1984, just 2 years after Wrath of Khan. And yeah, Nimoy takes the helm. It's a good time for him, I think, to take the helm as a director, just because, well, Spock ain't in this film that much. I mean, Spock himself is, but not the Leonard Nimoy version, because he starts off as a young kid and we see him growing old very fast until eventually he does become Leonard Nimoy. So obviously that frees him up as an actor to not have to be there on set as an actor, which means he gets to direct. So yeah, he does a pretty good job of it with very limited resources, I would say. I do think the lack of budget shows here. The guys who took over producing duty on Khan, this one, and the next film, they basically came on board because they said they could make a Star Trek film at the fraction of a price of what that original movie was made for. And obviously they proved themselves. They proved that was the case with Wrath of Khan. So yeah, I do feel that Wrath of Khan was served better. It did feel more cinematic in scope, in size. But budgetarily, I would say, like it felt like the money was on screen. Whatever they had was on screen. There's a few times here where the effects look a bit ropey, or the settings seem very soundstagey. I'll say, you know, like we spend a lot of time on this Genesis planet, and it does feel like we are in a soundstage on a movie set. But it's okay. It's an alien planet. An alien planet could look like anything. So I would say the villain, Christopher Lloyd's villain, is quite weak as well. Like he gets some things to do that are quite hard hitting on the characters. Certain certain actions that he calls his men to do are like shocking moments. I remember as a kid, the particular thing that he orders that gets done, it's like, oh, it's quite a shock, and that makes him a really bad villain, like a top tier villain kind of thing. But like I watch it now as an adult, and that almost feels like, yeah, he doesn't deserve to have such a big villain moment, because for the rest of the part, and this isn't down to Christopher Lloyd makes a great Klingon. I think he's good in the role, but from the writing standpoint, this guy doesn't really have much depth. He just wants the Genesis device. He's Khan 2.0, but without the whole vengeance plot. So he's less than. The movie's only like an hour and 40 minutes, and we get like to the showdown, the kind of final climatic fight scene, if you will, between Kirk and this guy at like the hour and 20 minute mark. And then we spend quite a long time just wrapping the movie up when we go to the Vulcan homeworld, and we have this ceremony with Spock, and there's a few lines of dialogue right there near the end where I'm like, yeah, they're good, I like that, that's a nice scene. But all the ceremony stuff that goes in it, I'm kind of looking at my watch going, well, this is dragging a bit. I did start to feel the film drag just in those last 10-15 minutes, but there is a lot of good stuff in here as well. There's some really great set pieces. There's one particular set piece where Kirk and his crew steal the Enterprise because, he wants to go and find Spock, but his higher ups are like, no way, out of the question. And he's like, well, sod it, we're going to do it anyway. But he needs the ship, he needs the Enterprise, so he steals it. It's a pretty big ship to steal for just a small crew. But that whole sequence, the way that plays out, it's tense. They use the suspense really well of these slow moving ships getting out of the dock, the other one's coming after them. Oh, are they going to get away? And they have a few tricks up their sleeve to help them do so. But there is that sense of tension. It's like, are they going to get out these Bombay doors? Now that they're out the Bombay doors, are they going to be able to get away from this other ship that's more powerful than theirs is? And yeah, so the way that whole scene plays out is quite tense, and just very well done, I think. Another sequence is between Kirk on the Enterprise and this character Kruger, played by Christopher Lloyd, as I say, where it seems like Kruger's got the upper hand, and essentially Kirk has to sacrifice the Enterprise. And I remember that being a huge moment as a kid. I'd seen Star Trek, the original show. I'd seen I'd seen Wrath of Khan. I'm not sure I'd actually seen the first movie at this point, but Wrath of Khan had been such a big deal that coming to this one, and then that whole sequence where, Kirk gives up the Enterprise. I mean, we know what a big deal the Enterprise is to Kirk. So much of his character within those first two movies was all about his affection for the Enterprise and the fact that he belongs there. It's part of him, and the fact that he has to do what he has to do in order to keep his crew alive. Especially as well, given the fact that he stole it and he shouldn't even have it anyway. It's like, he's going to get a slap on the wrist for that one. Just that whole sequence I remember seeing that as a kid and thinking, you can't do that. You can't destroy the Enterprise. But there's no Star Trek now. It's the middle part of a trilogy, essentially. I would say it's the weakest part of that trilogy. It essentially amounts to undoing what is, the pinnacle moment, or it's certainly one of the pinnacle moments of Wrath of Khan, which is the death of Spock. This sacrifice that this character made is now suddenly kind of undone in a way. I don't think it does away with that sacrifice just because they bring him back. He still made the call that he made, but it does give that sense now that, okay, all right, you can't really die then, not in a franchise as beloved as this. I think I do miss Spock as well in this film. You know, the Leonard Nimoy Spock. Obviously, as I've said, Spock is there, but he's not the Spock we know. And because he's not with Kirk, he's not with McCoy. That dynamic that is, is so beloved and that you get so much enjoyment out of in this franchise, it's just not there really. So it kind of falls upon the rest of the crew kind of being together to bring that. Again, as we've had with the previous movies, the rest of the crew, I feel like they get a little bit more to do here in the sense that they're all part of that escape plan. So yeah, it really feels like a team effort in that regard, and because this is essentially a skeleton crew, it's just those guys, those core guys on the bridge. It does feel, it feels a bit more of a team effort than the previous movies, in which those periphery type characters like Uhura, Sulu, Scotty, and them they kind of fell by the wayside a bit in the previous two movies, where it's just like they're kind of like they've got to put them there, but we don't really know what to do with them. So I feel like they're more of a presence here, even though I can't necessarily think of anything particularly special that they did during the movie. But they are a part of that. Yeah, they do feel like they're just there, a part of that team, a bit more than they have in the previous two movies. So that's a strength, I guess. But I feel like that's a strength that's I'm noticing because of the lack of Spock being there and having that dynamic that you usually get between Spock, Kirk and McCoy. So as I mentioned in my review for Wrath of Khan, we get a replacement character here. We get like a Rachel Dawes type situation for those Dark Knight fans. We changed the actor for Savick. So we had Kirstie Alley in Wrath of Khan playing Savick, and here we get Robin Curtis. Now, I said in Wrath of Khan that I couldn't remember who I preferred, but I had a feeling I preferred Robin Curtis. From memory, she was, for whatever reason, she felt more prominent in my mind from this film than she did in Wrath of Khan. Now, having watched Search for Spock, obviously, because that's what I'm talking about now, I think I do slightly prefer Kirstie Alley, which is as much a surprise to me as anyone. The bizarre thing is that I feel like Robin Curtis does actually suit the role better. This is one of those bizarre things where I prefer Kirstie Alley. I prefer watching Kirstie Alley in the role because she has more warmth about her, and yet that's kind of the one characteristic that a Vulcan should be lacking, or at least very low on. And I feel like Robin Curtis gets that here. There's a certain coldness from Robin Curtis, a lack of... I just don't feel that warmth from her. I'm not connected to her as much as I was with Kirstie Alley. And I wasn't that connected to Kirstie Alley as Savick, if I'm being perfectly honest. But yeah, there is something of a emotional disconnect from her here, and yet I'm kind of like, well, she's a Vulcan. Is that not perfect for the role then? So it is a weird consideration to think of. Yes, I preferred one actress in the role, but maybe the things that made her more like enticing in the role are the things that she shouldn't actually have for that role. It's a weird one. Just one final thing to just a little aside, which I did notice, which I really enjoyed. I've recently been watching the original Star Trek series, and there is a cameo in here by Grace Lee Whitney, who plays Officer Rand on the original series. Now I've only watched 4 episodes of that series. I don't know how prominent she is throughout the rest of it, but so far I think she's been in all 4. She's certainly been in 3. I've watched 4 episodes. She's been in 3 of them. And then, watching this, I was like, hang on a minute, that's Rand. And I thought maybe it's not, because it was just such a small kind of throwaway shot. But then they cut back to her, and she gives this like wry little smile, like she knows Kirk, she knows what he's up to, and it's like this. It was almost like an appreciation there for her old captain, and yeah, it was. I liked it. It was a nice moment that, if you're not a huge fan, if you're not well versed in the lore, it's fine. It's not a scene that needs you to know, but when you do know, it was just a nice little moment which I appreciated. But yeah, beyond that, it's a fun movie. It's a good ride. Like I say, pacing wise, it's pretty nicely paced, other than just right at the back end, just like the last 15 minutes or so, that they start to really slow down a bit. Beyond that, it's an entertaining film, and I have a lot of fond memories of it from childhood. I remember this being one that I watched quite regularly. As I say, I think I got more out of it as a kid because it is quite action oriented. But as an adult, I just feel like there's not quite as much depth to it. Like when you compare it to Wrath of Khan, which has a lot of depth, this one not so much. It's the middle chapter of a trilogy. So yeah, there you go. That's my thoughts on Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock. But what about you? Have you seen it? And what do you? Yeah, which one would you rate higher? Because I've spoken to a few friends. I've got a friend that he really likes this one, and I'm not sure if he'd rate it quite as high as Khan. But are there any people out there that would rate this higher than Khan? I know the Star Trek movies are famous for being, the even numbered ones are good, the odd numbered ones are bad. But I would never say this was a bad film. I think, yeah. But compared to Khan, yeah, not so much. Let me know in the comments what you think of Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock. Thank you for watching this review, and until next time, cracking.